Hey Jason, how you doing?
Very good, thanks. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So, tell me, why are you here in Manchester this weekend?
So I'm here for Man Bears, Great British Bear Bash. This is my second time attending Bear Bash. I did so 3 years ago in 2012 when the Scruff team did an event with Steve Littlewood at Legends, and I ended up spending 5 weeks in Manchester during both before and after the event, and sort of fell in love with the place, and been, since I returned to the UK a few days ago, I've been quickly reminded of how much I enjoy Manchester and all the friends that I made when I was here last. So it's not really a work trip this time around. It's just sort of fun and to catch up with some really dear friends.
Cool. Okay, so what do you like about Manchester then?
So I guess first of all, English. I have a terrible weakness for English accents, and I've always been sort of an Anglophile. From some of my earliest memories were my grandmother sitting me in front of the TV and having me watch Are You Being Served and Fawlty Towers, and then that sort of evolved into watching all Ab Fab shows and Doctor Who and Torchwood and so on and so forth. So I've always sort of been very fond of English culture, and having had the opportunity to spend an extended period of time here 3 years ago, pretty much confirmed that I really enjoyed I really enjoyed being here, and just people are more polite in addition to the accents. There's a lot of history. It just feels like it's much more anchored and established, and than it does in the US. And since my family, and I'm this is this may be suspect to some people, since I'm in the UK and and I'm sort of I'm in a way I'm sort of representing my app, but truly since my family moved away from the area where I was born and raised, I've really not had a sense of what home is, because everyone's sort of in my family sort of far flung, and I've lived in several different locations on opposite sides of the US, and strangely enough, even coming here after 3 years of being away, very quickly I felt okay, so this feels kind of like home to me, and I could, in some possible futures, I could see this as a home that I would adopt in a more official capacity. I mean, also what I notice, or what strikes me again now that I'm here, is that it's much more green. There's a lot more grass and a lot more lush gardens and whatnot. Currently now I live in New York City, which, I mean, there's Central Park, which is very nice and very green, but for most of the rest of New York City, it's all concrete jungle. So when you spend a lot of your time, walking through the middle of Manhattan to get to and from work, you don't realize that you miss nice green open spaces. So. Thank you.
So do you think Manchester's a kind of good city to be gay?
I would say yes. I mean, the people here that I know feel very comfortable. Granted, as sort of as a tourist or explorer, I've never felt particularly unsafe walking around the gay village, and people here just generally have been very friendly and accepting, and it's Richmond. I love the Richmond Tea Room and Molly House and all in the various bars. I've had so many good times.
Cool.
So it seems like it's a really great place to be at.
So talking about your app Scruff, why did you choose the name Scruff?
So the name Scruff was, the idea for Scruff and the name Scruff was the product of our co-founder Johnny Scandros, who he and our other co-founder Eric Silverberg, who does all the sort of the programming and the coding. They had an idea to do a local, a geosocial local app called West Fourth, and it was very sort of New York based, and it had and that was launched in the first part of 2010, and it had met with some moderate success, but it wasn't achieving the after several months at it, it was evident that it wasn't achieving the scale that that Johnny and Eric had sort of envisioned for their business. So there was some soul searching, and they felt like that we needed to do something different, but it wasn't clear what it should be. And I believe one night Johnny was at a bar called Bartini in Manhattan in Hell's Kitchen, and he was sitting next to someone who had like a really like nice beard, and he like reached over and said, "I really love your scruff." And so that must have like, you know, sort of gotten the gears rolling. And I guess later that night, like it sort of crystallized in his head that it's like this is what we need to do. It's like we should. So like Grindr had been out for I believe between 10 and 15 months at that point, and we felt that we wanted to do. He felt that we wanted to do something more sort of, you know, like everyday guy, like less sort of, you know, like smooth, like, you know, polished, you know, some of the torsos you see on other apps. We wanted to do something that was more focused on, you know, like everyday people, and sort of like the whole scruff idea of like not being all perfectly, you know, like perfectly coiffed and perfectly done up. And so we changed all the sort of like the creative around, and we made some improvements, and then we launched Scruff in July of 2010, and I discovered the app a couple days later, like literally 2 days after it launched in the App Store, and sent them. I had not known Johnny or Eric; they were complete strangers to me. In fact, like I just sent I found it on the App Store, and I, you know, installed it, and it's like, this is like objectively way better than any of the alternatives that I'd seen, and so I felt very gutsy. Like I just sent this email of I like this and I don't like that, and, you know, you should really consider like, you know, like rethinking how you're doing this particular element of the app, and if you want to like if you're interested in maybe doing a Scruff event in San Francisco, I know a couple of promoters that are always looking for reasons to do events. So I just sent all that off, and it was sent to info@scruffapp.com, like just generic, you know, email address, and not really even expecting to, like, you know, have anything come of it. And sure enough, the next day, Eric emailed me back saying, like, this is really good feedback. You know, I was worried about that as well. What do you think about this? And I guess most importantly, like, would you like to help us beta test like new versions before we release them to the store? Because we need a fresh set of eyes, and we don't currently have one. And I'm like, well, not really doing much else, so like, sure, absolutely. And then that grew into where we are now.
Okay, so you said a little bit about how you got involved in Scruff. So did your own dating experience influence how you gave feedback and your kind of role at Scruff?
So definitely. I used the internet to sort of backtrack. Like, I'd use the internet to come out like pretty much exclusively as my tool.
Yeah.
Since, you know, the early 90s, using the various services as they sort of evolved. And, you know, and I was on pretty much like without any break. Like, I was like on like whatever the popular services were of the time. And so, like, as a result, I'd sort of amassed all this sort of like, you know, actual, like, you know, end user experience, like interacting with these sites and figuring out, okay, so like what is in a good profile? Like, how do I interact with people over this like text medium where you sometimes lose a lot of context and you don't have the advantage of body language. So I just by virtue of the fact that that's how I felt, you know, most comfortable meeting people, because like is sort of I have an undergraduate degree in biochemistry, and I have a very like scientific, analytical sort of mindset, and I like to do research and sort of like pre-screen people before I meet them, so I felt that that online dating sites and then later apps were a good way to sort of, you know, get some sort of a sense for, you know, who someone was before I actually met them in person. And it also like, I felt like it gave me, like, you know, by sort of interacting with someone online first, it gives you, like, in the course of those conversations, like, you find out various things that they're interested in, and they find out various things that you're interested in. And so when you do decide to meet in person, like, you have, you know, sort of like a list of things to sort of, you know, get the conversation started and break the ice, so that you can, you know, move on to, you know, more, you know, just sort of fluid, you know, friendly conversation.
Awesome, thank you. So do you think apps have changed a lot since their inception, you know, a few years ago? Do you think the way that the apps are framed and the way that they work have changed?
In some respects, like there's been lots of evolution. In other respects, there's not. Like at the end of the day, like most of the apps in our category, including Scruff, you interact with a grid of thumbnails of guys, and then you tap on the thumbnail and you see their detailed profile, and then from there you have the opportunity to chat with them, or send them, or in the case of Scruff, to send them a woof. It's sort of like a Facebook poke. And so like the tool set for the most part, sort of the core interactions that you do on the app have remained somewhat steady. I can speak for Scruff that a lot of the technology under the hood, not both in the actual like clients on the phones and even more so all the like server architecture that is responsible for keeping all of those clients like talking to each other 24/7, 365. Like that's evolved substantially, and we've put a significant financial and and engineering effort into making it as like reliable and as resilient as we can.
Cool, thank you. So thinking the way that people date in modern times, can you sort of imagine and remember how it used to be back in the like 80s and early 90s when people had to reply to adverts in the press or ring up telephone numbers or actually meet people in bars? Do you think it's better now, or do you think we've lost some of that kind of old way that people would interact with each other?
I mean, it's certainly different. Like the rules of the road that worked, like the way that you interact with someone in a bar, where we're there in front of you, and you're all moving in 3 dimensions, and you have other people around, and there's noise, and you're getting drinks. That certainly like selects for certain kinds of behavior over others. Whereas if you're in the comfort of your own home, and you're interacting on an app at 10 o'clock at night, it does sort of select for a different you need to build like different it's a different skill set in order to be successful on apps, like being able to convey yourself clearly through text, which is some people. So personally, I like to speak very precisely, and I like to take time to think about exactly how to respond to things. So for me, interacting over text is actually I feel more comfortable doing that until I know someone and have some grounds for conversation in person. Whereas being on the flip side, being kind of an introvert and being sort of a bit shy by nature, interacting in bars, when I don't know the person beforehand, is a little bit more of a challenge for me, and usually takes a few drinks before I can do it very smoothly. I'd say that I would say that it's certainly different, and so apps are not going away, and sort of this mode of interacting with people and meeting people is not going away. So I feel like in order to maximize the potential through which you might meet people, be it for a date, for a hookup, for just making friends, for traveling to a new area and figuring out from the locals what should I do on Thursday night. I feel like that being somewhat familiar and comfortable using apps gives you sort of an advantage as a way to meet people.
Cool. What advice would you give guys to kind of enhance their profiles and kind of get them to really get noticed? So how do you make a profile stand out?
Right, and that's and this is another sort of a new reality where it's your photo, your thumbnail in that grid is competing with all the other photos next to you and below you and above you for attention. So I say the first thing is to really use some thought in composing your photo, good lighting, you're a flattering camera angle, strike some balance between a face that's engaging and happy, but also sort of confident. And it turns out that you can. There are ways in photos to project confidence, and then there's ways in photos to convey lack of confidence. So I'd say first of all, thinking, because the photos are the main the main form of it, how people, that's your first impression on an app. So like thinking really carefully about like the photo that you compose and how you choose to put yourself online is like probably the first consideration. And I'd say beyond that, like when you get to the actual text of your profile, and on Scruff, like we give you, relative in comparison to some of the other apps, like we went the direction of giving you like, you know, a fair amount of space to express yourself or not. My sort of rules of thumb are like try to avoid most importantly try to avoid telling people what you're not interested in. Like so these like sometimes you'll see profiles that like they go to painstaking lengths to convey know this, know that, not this, never this, not this. And like from the perspective of someone who's like seen and moderated like literally millions of profiles over the last 5 years, I'm much more interested in hearing what you are interested in, and like whether that be like, you know, what you like to do on a first date, or like what your sexual preferences are if you're looking to find people to hook up with, and also, you know, if you're looking for more sort of substantive conversations, like what music bands do you like? Like are you a science fiction person? What are your favorite shows? Like, you know, who's your favorite rugby team? You know, like giving people like keywords that like if they like the picture and they scroll down and they read your profile text, they can say, hey, it's like I really love that band too. Like, did you go to see them at Glastonbury or something? And I think those are the starts of much higher quality conversations.
Also, thinking about some of the articles in the gay press around some guys who've put themselves at risk, what do you think is the responsibility of apps to make sure that guys are safer? So
I would start by saying that I think wherever gays have met, like, you know, be it physically in a bar, or now increasingly so online, like I think there's always the potential for interacting with people who have ill intentions. Like there's the sort of the general rules of thumb, like, you know, if you're uncertain or if you feel a little bit uneasy, you know, then that's something like if you feel like there's a red flag, then there may actually be a red flag, because I think that we're actually fairly intuitive people, and, you know, you should go with your gut, particularly if it's a matter of like, well, I'm not sure if this seems a little bit dodgy. Also, it's like if you're planning to meet someone, I mean, the safest way to do it is to meet in public. And I mean, and so granted, it's like another logistical step, but like, you know, maybe you want to also tell a friend like that you're meeting somewhere, and you know, and then sort of like, and just be cautious. And these rules, you know, they would apply in general for meeting people, you know, in any venue. Just as they would online. Like don't be like really quick to give away your personal identification information, just like, you know, you wouldn't do that to, you know, you wouldn't respond to a random email saying, you know, what your address is. Like you'd want to wait until you have a certain comfort level before you do that. Yeah. So be safe and responsible.
In the past, a lot of sexual health, HIV prevention and drug awareness was done on the gay scene, and now it's moving away to people having private parties. What sort of role do you think apps can play in helping educate guys and helping them to stay safe?
So I do feel like we have a responsibility to our community to provide them with resources that inform them, and that in the case of whether it be that like where the local where the local health clinic is, like where you can get tested, where you can find programs that like can help you if you have substance abuse issues, the first way that we're doing that in Scruff is through a program called Benevolence, and this launched in August of last year. And basically what it is that we donate up to like a sizable percentage of our mobile banner ad inventory specifically to LGBT nonprofits that, you know, that work within the gay community, and so like so they can run like locally targeted ads to their communities that advise them of like, you know, where the HIV clinic is, or where like some sort of like help program, like if you find that you're having, you know, trouble with substances that you want to get help with, it's available in the UK, so if people like run or know of these, or know of like, you know, clinics or like substance abuse counseling programs, that they go to like ads.scruff.com, little ad plug here. They go to ads.scruff.com and sign up for Benevolat, and we can get them set up. If you're a sort of like a registered nonprofit organization that you have all your official documents in place, we will run ads for you to help get the word out about things that that can make people like safer and healthier. And so we hope that people will use that increasingly in the years to come.
No, I mean, that's good to know. So thinking about Scruff, if you were to describe it in one word, obviously other than Scruff, what would that be, that word?
Okay, so I'm going to say hot, and it's mainly because, so granted, like I may be speaking in sort of a more personal capacity here, but even like going on 5 years into it, like when I load the app up on my phone, like just like seeing some like the like very attractive people that I would very much like to meet, that I feel like are in sort of my wheelhouse in terms of like the kind of guys that I'm interested in. Like that's So Scruff is a user of Scruff. That's the first word that would come to my head. As someone speaking in the capacity of the product manager, I'd say it's reliable. As I was saying before, like we've invested a significant amount of engineering and financial resource into making Scruff like very, very making sure that people are connected 24/7, 365. And we're going to be doing a lot of other significant under-the-head improvements to make it even more reliable and better performing, particularly in areas that are like far away from where our data center is located in the United States. So there's like some really it won't make the client look very much different, but it will. But in terms of making sure that everyone's messages get delivered in a timely fashion. And that there's even better uptime. Like there's a lot of improvements that are happening in the next 6 months that we're very excited about.
And on a more personal note, I'm sure there's many guys out there wondering. So what sort of guys do you go for?
I like guys who are I like guys that have like a nice balance of personality, but also like groundedness. I like guys that are. So I also really like guys who are geeks, who have like lots of sort of intellectual or like hobby interests, and they're very passionate about them, because that it doesn't necessarily need to be like that we have to have the same hobbies and interests, but like I feel like that I can relate to someone who's very passionate about something, like whether it's collecting stamps or going to music festivals or watching Game of Thrones, or what have you. I really like to have like a nice deep conversation about obscure details of like my favorite TV show.
What are your plans for the rest of the weekend?
So I'm going to be attending some of the various Great British Bear Bash events, and hopefully like brunch with some other friends that I want to catch up with. And I think my friend Eddie is gonna take me up to Blackpool for a day just to see like a new area. We were in Chester. We were in Chester a couple nights ago to see Hodor from Game of Thrones, who's actually, not only is he a character on like one of the most popular TV shows in the world, but he's also like a really good house DJ. So like I had the distinct pleasure to go and see him perform, and through a mutual friend met him and had tea with him, and it was just delightful. So. Like a nice little daily jaunt to Blackpool, and so we won't see anyone from Game of Thrones there probably, but it's always fun to see like new areas in a country that I really like to explore.
Cool. Well, we interviewed Christian last October.
Yeah, he's
for our network. So that's really good. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Enjoy the rest of your time here in Manchester.
I shall.
And maybe we'll see you over the weekend.
I would like that very much.
Nice one. Thank you.
My pleasure.